This is a PSP. And this is a completely 3D printed shell for it. Nobody sells this, and Sony couldn't have ever imagined this back in 2004. So when I found out someone had actually designed one that anyone can print, I had to try building it. But what I didn't expect were the hurdles and difficulties I'd come across building it. So here's my journey. My name is Dan, and welcome to the workbench. Today we're working on a 19-year-old PSP 2000 from Japan, with a shell that has seen some better days. I picked this particular PSP up for around £40 on eBay, and as you can see, it's a prime candidate for today's shell swap. It also came with a non-working UMD drive, which is ideal since this shell actually deletes the drive entirely. It's got missing labels, cracks, scratches, and a front lens that is completely scratched up. All expected wear and tear for a console this age. So without further ado, let's head on over to Komstation, which is Total Commando's website for all things PSP. The link's in the description. The shell was designed by Xovi, and on Komstation you can find a full breakdown of the project, the build process, and even a Q&A at the bottom. It's licensed under GPL 3, which means that it's fully open source. You're free to remix it, improve it, and build on it, which is a fantastic thing for the community. From there, you're linked to Printables, where all the files are available to download, along with a full PDF assembly guide. It includes detailed photos, a complete bill of materials, which honestly makes it about as approachable as a project like this can be. I printed two shells, both in PLA on my Creality High. The first is in matte Burleywood PLA, which is the Little Big Planet themed version, which I actually really liked. I didn't have a deep enough brown, but I printed it anyway just to see how it would turn out. Xovi did mention that matte PLA would be weaker, and I definitely found that out the hard way. A few small cracks showed up during the build, especially when parts needed a bit of persuasion, as you can see here. The second shell is black PLA+, which is a lot tougher. You can see a lot of ringing on the inside though, but it's not a huge issue since you're not going to see it anyway, and a little bit of minor ringing on the outside. I think I just had a little bit too high acceleration, and I really, to be honest, wanted the print done as quickly as possible because I couldn't wait to see it. The back shells turned out amazing, very smooth on the outside walls. Same goes for the Little Big Planet edition, and again we can see a little bit of ringing ghosting on the inside. Not a big deal since you can't see it anyway, as long as those outside walls look nice and smooth. And here's a closer look at some of that ringing or ghosting I was talking about. Not the end of the world, you're never going to see it anyway. And the thing about the black PLA is it will show every imperfection. The matte wood PLA does hide the ringing, it's still there, but the matte PLA does give a really nice finish. Once everything's printed, here's what you're left with. It does look really intimidating, and to be honest I thought it was. Now remember, this is a full shell swap, so none of the original plastic's going to get reused here, only the electronics carry over. Let's start with disassembly. It's straightforward. The PSP 2000 is noticeably more complex than the 1000, which I'm usually used to working on. There's more layers, more ribbon cables, and less room for mistakes. We've got 4 screws in the back and 1 under the warranty label. Nothing too difficult and very similar to the PSP 1000 that I'm already used to. Just take your time here, be careful not to strip the screws and use the correct driver. I'll cut to the time lapse here, but the key thing is to take your time. The ribbon cables are delicate, and it's very easy to damage something if you rush. As you can see here, I did find a little bit of difficulty with the screen, but it's not the end of the world, we got there in the end. After all that, here's what you're left with. Just the bare electronics. and none of the original PSP shell parts. Assembly starts with this little base frame. First we're going to insert the Wi-Fi switch, just be careful it doesn't fall out. Check that it moves free and you've got good clearance. It's a tight fit, but it goes together with some patience. The base frame clips into the mid frame using these clips here. It will be tight, but it does go in with some persuasion. I did have some clearance issues and had to use my snips. Again, I think I went wrong with the mid frame here. This is going to come back to bite me, as we'll see later on. The power button, memory card slot and shoulder buttons all slot in next, nice and easy. Just take your time here, the shoulder buttons will try to fall out. As long as you have good clearances on your printer, they should just drop right in. Next we're going to grab the centre frame, which should snap into place nicely like this. And this is where I hit my first real problem. One of my slicer supports had fused into a screw hole, completely blocking it. And that's going to come back to haunt me later. The thumbstick screws in using one of the original black screws. Once that's secure, the motherboard should just drop right into place. Just like on the original shell, the motherboard should just drop right into place. Just make sure everything's aligned up and it should go in with a satisfying snap. Check your alignment of the USB port also. The soundboard presses into the bottom and then it's time for the rear shell. Unfortunately, the support's left a nasty scar here and the fitment is extremely tight. I had to do some sanding and a bit of filing, but it does go in. This is going to become a recurring theme throughout the build. The back should just slide along these two rails here, but I did have some severe difficulties getting it to go. Had to make some trimming and do a lot of sanding, but we got there in the end and the fitment isn't too bad, to be honest. The Wi-Fi antenna goes in next, and I reused the original adhesive here, but I wish I actually used glue because it didn't actually stick that well in the end. The speakers snap into the frames, the button membranes go back on, and then disaster strikes. The power connector is incredibly fragile, and I know this from the PSP 1000, and somehow I managed to snap it clean off the board. This meant breaking out the soldering iron to repair it, which isn't the hardest job, but definitely very fiddly, so make sure you watch out for that when you attempt this yourself. Now, about that lens. You can reuse the original plastic one, which I've attempted to do here, but given how scratched mine was, I wish I didn't, and honestly I'd recommend just using a glass lens kit instead. Total Commando does a great video of this on his channel, so links in the description for that one. The home button ribbon cable also gave me a problem. It stuck out a little bit more than I thought, and it's a little bit squint. I think this is probably down to my printing errors though, so I'm not overly fussed about it. The top frame needed a little bit more filing due to support scars, and that's just what's going to happen with 3D printing unfortunately. Unless you can really nail the supports, you're always going to get scars. A little bit of filing, and at this point everything should sandwich together, but I'm not happy with the fitment. The mid-frame may have warped slightly due to printing, and it's fighting me at every step. I ended up using M3 bolts instead of the screws I originally planned to, since those turned out to be way too long. The bolts do help pull everything together, but even then, it's not perfect. We have a lot of bowing and gaps around the edges, and I'm just not satisfied with it overall. No matter how hard I push, the large gaps just don't seem to go away. And it's a shame really. I think a lot of this is down to the mid-frame being bowed during printing. The enlarged battery bay takes a PSP 1000 battery, which snaps into place along with the cover. And finally, it's together. In the hand, this thing feels incredible. It honestly feels like a PSP 1000 again, solid, weighty and chunky. I always preferred the PSP 1000 form factor, especially having larger hands, and this thing absolutely nails the feeling. If we have a look at a little comparison here, you can see it's actually almost bigger, and I love it. I just love everything about this. You got all the benefits of a 2000 with the look, feel and weight of a 1000. The fitment isn't perfect and that's on me, but despite that, it looks great and feels fantastic. Looking back, there's definitely things I'd do differently next time. I probably should have used the black shell throughout, and I'd change a few print settings to avoid those scars. But overall, it's a genuinely fun project and I'm really excited to see what the community does with this. So, the pros and cons of the project. The pros, the shell's fully open source, it's relatively easy to print with some tweaking, and it's accessible. Even if you don't own a printer, there are services online that will print it for you. The cons, well, assembly is challenging, especially if you're a first timer. You do need to sacrifice a PSP 2000 or 3000, and post-processing takes time, a lot of it. Still, this was a great experience and I'll definitely be attempting another build in the future. If you like what you saw, drop a like and consider subscribing. My name's Dan, and this was The Workbench.